Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation podcast.
Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation, where our experts bring you fresh ideas and new perspectives on how consumers eat, drink, shop, groom, and think. I'm Edward Bergen, consultant at Mintel, specializing in food and drink, all-round foodie, and I'm a massive hummus fanatic. This year, and over the past year, it's been quite tough, as we know. The pandemic has spotlighted our health and well-being, both the physical, but also our mental health. And it's really come to the fore. And consumers talking about it a lot through social media and with their families. So we wanted to dedicate one of our podcasts to it, but we really wanted to try and understand how brands can react and how brands can help consumers with their mental health. So what we're going to do today is we've got some absolutely fabulous experts looking at different industries, looking at the consumer in general, and then food and beauty and other industries will come into it too. So I'm going to ask each of you to say hello. We've got Andrea, Andrew, and Alex, the three A's. It's good. 3 A's, aces, all the nice things we can say. Do you want to start in that order and then introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi there. I'm Andrea Roble, and I'm Mintel's Senior Health and Wellness Analyst for U.S. Reports.
Cool. And Andrew?
I'm Andrew McDougall. I'm an analyst for the beauty and personal care part of Mintel's business. And I'm gutted you didn't call us the A-team.
Yeah, that would have been better, but then my name's Edward, so that, well...
I guess I'll jump in. Yeah, my name's Alex Beckett. Hi, guys. And I'm a global food and drink analyst. And yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into this huge topic.
Yeah, it's a bit big. Thank you very much for joining. So to start with, as always, as Mintel are experts in what consumers want and why, Andrea, can you just kick us off and just talk about mental health, why it's got now so much coverage in all of our industries and our media, and what the consumers are saying?
Sure. So the landscape of mental health awareness and action from the consumer perspective is really a dynamic space right now. When we're looking at Mintel data from the US, we see that nearly 70% of consumers have experienced a mental health condition within the past year, meaning majority of people are acknowledging that there is some strain on their mental well-being. We see that 62% of adults categorize their mental health as either good or very good, which indicates that it doesn't necessarily take a distress mental state for people to be aware of or take steps to manage their mental well-being. In fact, the top mental health conditions are things and emotions that I'm sure many of us can relate to, such as stress, anxiety, burnout, and mental exhaustion. So dealing with mental health on a more familiar scale actually inhibits a lot of people from seeking formalized treatment. But that does create a unique opportunity for both CPG brands and direct-to-consumer services to provide both accessible and approachable solutions for managing those more day-to-day emotional needs.
Wow, the number is staggering. I know we hear it a lot, but to hear 70% have recognized their mental health. So I'm sure there might be others in the remaining 30% that also haven't,
right?
And may also be suffering from a mental health issue, but that they've recognized that they have something that's affecting them. It feels really big to me.
Yeah, it's huge.
It would be similarly huge across the world, I'd imagine. This is one of the things about what we're experiencing with this pandemic is that everyone universally, globally, is affected, and not many huge events like this come along all the time, do they? So everyone is suffering as a result of this, and it's because of that there are so many more opportunities for learnings and solutions, you'd hope, which I guess is what we're going to talk a bit about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what we want to do is break down mental health. We're going to try to anyway, and build some pillars of how brands can react. And then for you guys to talk about the consumer, but also about your industries. And we've got a sort of 3 pillars. One of them is quite direct, which is brands can produce products that are functional to support our mental health. New ingredients, and hopefully, legislation will pass that they're allowed to, launch these new products. So I want to talk about those. We're then going to come on to brands spending a day in the consumer's shoes. So being more empathetic with the consumer, which is very, very difficult to do because consumers are very different. And then finally, we're going to talk about how brands can help consumers feel part of something, part of a community. So I don't know who wants to start, but maybe it's a food start, but thinking about functionality of ingredients, what we put in our body, or in the case of beauty, on our body.
Yeah, okay. So with functionality, functional food and drink definitely has been one of the big buzzy trends we've seen over the past few years, definitely before the pandemic even. I guess what do we mean by functionality? It means enhancing the food to give you an added health boost that wouldn't have been natural in the food or drink to begin with, naturally. And this is a kind of interesting thing about thinking about functional mood boosting food and drink, because food and drink is a mood boost in itself. I had a spaghetti bolognese ready meal for my lunch today. I felt great after it, you know? And of course, that brings us to comfort food. And yeah, we've seen over the past year, sales of certain comfort foods have done really well because we've wanted that sweetness, the boost of the sugariness on our minds, on our hormones, winner. But of course, at the same time, we've got this health awareness now. We talk about functionality, you can't not talk about health and diet consciousness as well, especially as we know that dietary related diseases like obesity have been linked with are linked with COVID. So functional, therefore, comes into this. You can't carry on eating spaghetti bologneses for your mental wellness, for your mental wellness support and to cheer yourself up. With functionality, we're seeing more food and drink products coming in with functional mood boosting ingredients or nutrients to kind of find that middle ground of this is a food and drink you might normally have anyway, but we've supplemented it with approved nutrients and you have to be careful here because if you're going to make a functional mood boosting claim or mental wellness claim, you have to use an approved nutrient, especially here in Europe, where we've got European Food Safety Authority being quite strict about this sort of thing, rightfully so. So yeah, with functionality, we've seen products coming through with magnesium added, known as the mindfulness mineral. We all know about ingredients and flavors like chamomile, lavender, more traditionally associated with calming. But at the same time, you know, considering we've been going through this pandemic for a year now, we haven't seen a massive spike in launches of food and drink with stress, de-stressing or sleep enhancing or relaxing claims on the packaging. Why? Well, I guess because, first of all, as I said, you know, it's very difficult to make these kind of claims. You have to, without appearing as misleading consumers, especially at this time. And also from a manufacturer perspective, do they really want to focus on such a niche need state? So, yeah, we have seen products come through to the market, functional food and drink. I work a lot with functional drinks. There is the consumer demand for these, but there's still hesitancy and caution about the efficacy of these functional benefits as well. People want to believe that they'll improve their mood, their mental wellness, but do they trust them to be fully effective? Not so much. There's still a job done.
They're doing it in like categories like tea, herbal tea. It's been, you know, consumers have for a very long time linked to having a herbal tea to calming down in the evening. And it might be the fact that it's a hot drink with flavors in, but also that's been allowed for a long time. And there's a general consumer feeling that you have a chamomile tea, it helps you just to sort of chill out a bit, right?
Yeah, there isn't the clinical scientific proof there, though. And this is the thing, you know, it's about, like, I guess we'll come on to this later, but about offering value for money at this time. People, of course, like Angia said, people want support in feeling calmer and de-stressing at the end of the day. They want that. They need to trust, though, that what is claimed will deliver. Brands are adding generic terminology like calming, tranquility, or what have you, to packaging, to labeling. not a clear and specific health claim saying this will calm you, we guarantee it, and having success with that. But I think increasingly consumers are going to be scrutinizing these claims more, scrutinizing these nutrients more, and wanting proof, and maybe scientific proof, wanting the data, the facts of how magnesium can calm your nerves, or L-theanine, or one of these other functional calming ingredients.
What is trust like, Andrea, when from consumers right now?
Yeah, so I think that consumers are looking for support when it comes to managing their mental well-being, but it does take a level of trust, authenticity, and familiarity. When they're managing their mental health, we see that consumers are most likely to go to their friends and family even before seeking out medical attention or looking for support from products. So there has to be some sort of element where consumers feel that they can trust the products that they're putting into their body. Alex, I'm curious to hear from your perspective. I've seen some brands taking benefits that they already are tapping into before the pandemic, such as benefiting the gut microbiome, for example, and showing consumers through either their social media or their campaigns how that also can improve other areas of your health, such as focus, increased productivity, or sleep health, all things that contribute to having a positive mental state. So have you seen an increase in that within the food and drink space?
Not as much as you'd think, really. We have seen some interesting brand launches where they've made a really overt play for the calming mood. Probably the most notable being PepsiCo's Driftwell drink. That you saw that launched in the US in December. A sleep-enhancing water containing magnesium, L-theanine, with a lavender flavor, and the marketing's got a lovely sleepy moon on it, I believe, and some calming clouds drifting across the moon. Oh man, I'm calming down myself. And it's doing okay. It's only launched in the US. You can bet your bottom dollar it'll probably launch globally. But it was a big moment because of what we're going through. People are anxious. And then it's a brand as big as PepsiCo has banked on this sleep enhancing drink that got loads of publicity. People are a bit dubious about the flavor, but it's the fact, it's using these magnesium and L-theanine. And there is a bit of a consumer education job still to do, though.
Sleep's been a big deal, though. We've seen a lot of media stories saying that consumers have not slept well this year.
Yeah, and it's a top health priority that consumers are putting more weight on going into 2021 is how am I improving my sleep health? How am I prioritizing my sleep? Really taking those moments to prioritize themselves in the ways that they can right now within their homes and through their routines.
I assume Andrew's doing a face mask before bedtime. We always talk about face masks whenever I see you to calm down.
There's two types of face masks, isn't there? There's one you can actually topically apply. There's one you can wear to protect yourself and others around you. But no, I think for beauty, it's definitely a case. It's really interesting actually to hear both Alex and Andrea speak about proof and things like that. Because in beauty, that's a big thing right now. So trust and proof and substantiation of claims is really important. It was really important years before this pandemic. I think this pandemic has kind of made more of a focus on certain aspects of well-being. So we have data as well in the beauty space that shows that people do turn to beauty products, for example, to help them to relax or to help them to sleep in particular, going back to what we were saying before. The beauty routine as well also helps us to sort of de-stress. And again, I think stress relief and trends around that, again, were around before this pandemic. It's just kind of sort of heightened on that. On sort of the functional ingredient side of things, I mean, it's really interesting to hear Alex talk about functionality and functional foods from his industry perspective. I know that sort of EFSA and the FDA and other global regulatory bodies are very strict, particularly in food. They're very strict in beauty as well. But it's interesting to see how functional ingredients are used in beauty. So, because functional ingredients for us are essentially the ingredients that make the products work. So your detergents or your conditioning agents or your moisturizers. So for us, it's much more about substantiating other claims that we have in products. So we see ingredients such as natural natural ingredients have been trending. Adaptogens, these sort of herbal ingredients that can kind of just change your responses. Normally better when orally taken rather than topically applied, but we do see those ingredients coming through in beauty as well. And also there's also concepts around psychodermatology, which is all about this connection between the brain and your appearance. So this connection between your physical appearance, or so your skin's appearance or your hair's appearance, and the mental health and well-being that you have as well. So these concepts, again, we were looking at before this pandemic, but it's definitely heightened because of that. And I think that mind-body connectedness is definitely something that Andrea spoke about just then, but it's definitely something we're seeing trending more in beauty now. And a lot of beauty brands are making that connection, bringing beauty and self-care routines together. So I think it's really important for brands to just be genuine, to make that personal connection and to appreciate authenticity in these moments as well, because as much as I talk about substantiation and trying to do as much as you can, there are also a lot of brands, which I will not name, but they will jump on the bandwagon and risk tokenizing a lot of these mental health claims or these well-being claims that we see being made. In beauty, we see it quite a lot already. So I think there's a real art to how you sort of approach this concept, but it's definitely one that we need to approach and talk about a lot more.
If you're a brand, before we go on to pillar 2, just want to carry on asking you something, Andrew. If you're a beauty brand and you want to attract a normal consumer that uses a few beauty products and that has a basic routine, but you also want to talk to them about their mental health, what advice would you give? That's quite a big question, but I didn't prepare you for this one. But it just feels like, how do you attract? I call them Sally from Skipton in the north of England.
I'd caution you from using the term normal to describe the consumer. So that's sort of that's one sort of well-being thing we've noticed. Again, that's not just pandemic related, but socially related. Again, the way you address people now, in particular, whether that's pronouns or just in general, inclusivity is something that we have to approach, because we're not, we haven't made it. We probably never will, in terms of, we've completed that section. But I think we do have to think more about how we speak to consumers. I think it's about, we have seen particularly younger consumers, so the Gen Z are really fascinating to focus on, because this is sort of tagged as the loneliest generation. I say that in air quotes, which is difficult to portray on a podcast. But they are the loneliest generation, yet they're also the generation that are most open to talk about their mental health. So we've seen beauty brands in general have tapped into mental well-being quite well, again, over the years. Beauty brands that genuinely approach causes have done very well, and have done so in a very sort of sensitive way. I think one beauty brand that's done really well in the last year is Rare Beauty, which is a beauty brand set up by Selena Gomez, the celebrity. And basically there's loads of celebrity brands out there, but hers is really interesting because it basically uses the beauty platform to address mental health. So the brand's purpose itself is about supporting people on their journeys to feel more comfortable with themselves, rather than talking about a beauty ideal. It's all about creating this community where people can talk. It's predominantly a Gen Z audience as well that it's targeted at. But it talks quite heavily, which is interesting in the beauty industry, about the mission being to break down unrealistic standards of perfection, which in beauty we constantly play on that whole sort of ethos. So it's really interesting to see how brands can approach this and basically create communities. And I think in the beauty space, with social media being so available to us as well, I think it creates these I know we'll talk about community a bit later, but it creates these areas, I think, of safety. And so I think beauty plays quite well in there, but I do think the message has to be authentic and genuine, because you will be called out.
Absolutely. You go straight into that pillar number 2, the idea of being empathetic. Have consumers shifted in what they expect from brands over the past 12 months compared to before? Might be the best one to ask Andrea to just take that one first.
I would say that empathy as a theme is really important in the way that brands approach consumers right now, especially considering the impact of COVID-19 on people's values, their routines, and their shifting need states. The pandemic resulted obviously in a lot more people spending time within their homes, which ended up benefiting people's health. We saw that 43% of adults said being at home more often than usual helped them feel more in control of their health over the past 12 months. So the almost evolutionary evolution of the home environment resulted in consumers viewing the home as this place to care for their physical well-being as well as their emotional and mental well-being. And looking ahead, I think brands can really position rituals and home routines as these core components of self-care because adults have formed a really emotional connection to their homes that's rooted in maintaining a sense of self, a sense of control. So tools that either help you organize or declutter or simplify your health priorities can help adults connect well-being with at-home routines.
The idea of rituals is really interesting. And it's all over the food and drink industry at the moment, taking a few minutes to do, whether it's scratch cooking, I think it's been the headline for us this year. But Alex, you can tell us more.
Absolutely. Scratch cooking. We've seen the upsurge in people baking more as well. Of course, we saw the shelves, supermarkets running empty of flour and yeast for so many months. But what's really interesting is particularly younger people who our data shows are most keen to improve their own cooking skills. But I'd like to just quickly draw attention to alcohol, as I am wanting to do. But sales of spirits, white spirits, dark spirits, absolutely soared. You look at the latest sales results from Diageo, Pernod Ricard, and our data shows that people are enjoying that ritualistic, very calming moment, appreciating the nuanced flavors, complex notes of spirits, not necking a cold lager, although they are at home as well. But it's spirits have done, dare I say it, obviously with the on-trade, they've really had a crushing time. But in terms of retail, at-home consumption, spirits have done pretty well. And again, particularly among younger people. So 38% of UK dark spirit drinkers, so we're talking about whiskey, rum, dark rum, claim that drinking dark spirits at home has become more appealing since the COVID-19 outbreak. And that rises to 50% of 16 to 34s. And it's because of this, their association with relaxation.
That's
it's
massive.
Gigantic. This is dark spirits. This isn't something hip and trendy like hard seltzers or, I don't know, oat milk or something. This is dark spirits. This is whiskey.
Oat milk.
It's this association with relaxing, but also the uptake of cocktail making, which again, another ritual which people have taken up.
Are you relaxing every night with a whiskey, Alex? As I know you're partial to one. Have you found your consumption's gone up?
Do you know, Andrew? It actually has. At least probably not the volume wise, but just a little nip, just that little moment after I've cleaned the house, the kids are in bed, a little dram. And
I think it's important. I think that's sorry to butt in it, but I think that's important. I think routines are good for that because, from a beauty side of things, beauty routines are really, they shouldn't be underestimated just how important they are to sort of make you feel sort of that sense of normality in your day-to-day life, especially considering how hectic COVID's been. But I think, routines themselves will bring, whether it is, doing a beauty routine or indeed having a drink in the evening, it helps to give you that stability of your daily routine. It helps you feel a little bit more like you're in control. It also makes you focus on doing stuff as well, rather than worrying about the pandemic or worrying about sort of your health and things like that. It's actually just a nice way to stop spiraling down sort of a worry hole as well. So I think, being able to pamper yourself and do stuff like that, I think, routines are really important. It's like the ultimate act of kindness to sort of have a self-care routine, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's also, it comes back to empathy. Like we talk a lot about ashwagandha and other kind of wellness botanicals that are linked with calming. But at the end of the day, if we're being empathetic, you're putting yourself in the consumer's shoes. They want stuff that works. They want stuff that is going to calm them down. Alcohol. Yeah. As I just said, spirit sales doing so well. Chocolate, ice cream sales have done really well.
Chocolate.
Keep throwing them at me. Caffeine, it's
coffee.
Caffeine. Everyone's tired. Andrea said it.
Oh, I've been making a lot of coffee.
After all, is a mood booster. Now, it's a whole other debate about whether we should be having all this stuff. It's not necessarily the healthiest. And again, that's where this permissible indulgence comes in. If we have ice cream that is high in protein and fiber, you get that treat feeling, you have that reward. But at the same time, you know what? I'm going to have a little extra bit because it's high in protein and fiber or probiotics.
I think indulgence is important for well-being as well. Like you said, like not overindulging. We probably should promote that. You shouldn't overindulge on these things.
Absolutely not.
But having that feeling of indulgence and pampering, I think it's really important, because having sort of something like that, something that makes you feel good, that boosts your mood.
Yeah.
I mean, the cascade of chemicals in your brain that's going to trigger and things like that. Again, whether that's a routine or just an action that you're doing, you can relax or you can find comfort or fulfillment in what you're doing. So, for example, I keep mentioning beauty routines, but things like having a bath, for example, now, if you can take the time to draw a bath and sort of have that moment of getaway, again, that can be a really important and powerful well-being action that you can take that actually is just very simple, but it just has that connection for you. So I think it's really important, whether it is the ingredient itself, which, as you say, I think we need to have substantiation and proof around, but also just think little actions can just be those things that just connect people with their own sort of wellness and self-care as well.
And I think we're tapping into a larger consumer trend here as well, which is the need for balance, right? You know, it's about these simple ways that consumers can feel like they're getting that moment of indulgence while caring for themselves in other ways. So how can brands not only offer that sense of balance from the indulgence side, but perhaps it's simple ways to improve your fitness within the home, or simple ways to be a little bit healthier within the home as well, that people also need to get that sense of control.
Which takes us into, because I think the idea of empathy, and then this sort of sums it all up, that a lot of brands have reacted to by helping consumers find other consumers that think like them, that are doing rituals like them, that are seeing the world like them, and give them something to be part of. I've been playing an online mobile game for the past 12 months. That's been quite fun. And I've been using something called Twitch. My wife just doesn't understand. She genuinely thinks I'm a massive loser because I'm watching a gamer play the game while I'm at that moment not playing the game. She just doesn't get watching someone else play a game and why that's fun. But I find it really entertaining that someone's talking about it. There's other people commenting. We have the same experiences. But that's a simple one from the gaming industry. But this idea of getting brands getting consumers to feel part of it more, and that they're not alone. And there must be loads of examples. So I kind of want just, again, we can start with Andrea, but what do consumers want this? And what are we seeing?
Yeah, so I think this is a little bit more difficult of an area for brands because, as I said before, consumers are turning to their friends and family as the top resource for mental health management. Brands fall much lower on the list, but that doesn't mean that brands don't have a place to play here. Making a safe and trustworthy dynamic a part of your mental health marketing is super important. Consumers will want to see commitment to authenticity and honesty while being relatable and approachable. So it's about that language that makes discussing mental health habits and practices almost feel like a conversation between friends and family. The way I've been seeing it play out a lot is that cross-category brands are leveraging their existing communities to enter the space of mental wellness through things like partnerships. One that I can think of is Nordstrom actually just announced a partnership with their athleisure brand, Zella, their in-house athleisure brand, partnering with a brand called Dance Church to provide a series of both in-person and virtual events. And Dance Church is all about mental release, finding joy, while getting some physical activity. So it's a great way for Nordstrom to expand their reach and connection with an existing community, but also hitting on that pillar of mental well-being.
Yeah, community is a really interesting pillar, I think, in general. Going what Andrea said there is, obviously, brands would love to be seen as that sort of friend or family member to consumers, but as you can't force a friendship on people. So it's very interesting to see how you have to authentically introduce and play in that space. And I think brands do that in a number of different ways. I mean, for example, in beauty, there's so many social media platforms that are great for connecting with communities. But again, not like as a brand, you shouldn't be on every single platform. Or if you are on every platform, you should really be sort of prioritizing certain platforms that get your message across better. So, for example, some beauty brands work very well on Facebook, and there's a good commercial sort of development through Facebook, through buying products and things like that. However, Instagram, again, is very much more visual. So that might be the place, particularly for younger consumers. We've seen TikTok, particularly over the last year, people seeking out guidance, whether that's from a brand or from an expert, or again, whether it's from friends or family themselves, or from sort of influencers they can relate to. Again, seeking out these videos to find out, okay, how do I achieve certain makeup looks, or what can I do, is really interesting. Clubhouse as well has been sort of this really fast growing community, particularly in beauty. There's so many beauty communities created in Clubhouse right now that are openly talking about different practices as well. So finding out where and how to approach consumers, I think, is half the battle. I think the gaming example you gave earlier, Ed, is really interesting, because I think that's a huge market going forward for all brands to play in. For example, Givenchy actually had some of their fashion items and some of their makeup items used in the Animal Crossing game. So again, sort of tapping into the gaming market to actually meet consumers there. And if you think of other games such as the 2K games, such as like the NBA 2K games, again, like apparel brands can immediately tap into that, because again, you're literally completing the game, and as you're going through and getting certain achievements, you're then wanting to buy certain branded clothing. So again, tapping into that is another way to connect. But then going on what Andrew was saying as well, I think once you've then connected, it's then about using that platform. And I think beauty brands, I used the Selena Gomez example earlier, but there's so many beauty brands that use their platforms to open up conversations about mental health, to talk, whether that's donating or working with other organizations to talk about mental health. I think talking more openly with one another is something that we're seeing a lot more. And I think when a beauty brand is embracing mental health, as we have seen many brands do over the last few years, it then becomes this authentic cause that brings along encouragement and recognition of mental health, which is really important. It helps people to look to help themselves. It helps people to look to help one another. And it also helps to eliminate some of the stigma that often keeps people from then asking for that help. So I think beauty brands and other sort of popular brands in other industries can play such an important role in not only making that connection, but then actually providing access or guidance towards certain resources or tools that can then help and encourage further. So I think, as I said, beauty, in my opinion, plays a very good role in the mental health space. More can be done. But I think for brands, that's the really important message, is how can you communicate authentically? And then actually, how can you then use that platform to promote something much more positive?
Right. I think it has to make sense with your brand as well and continue to align with the core values of the brand. For example, Lululemon, they started an online book club over the pandemic, and if they were promoting a book club that was all about historical nonfiction, it probably wouldn't make sense. But all of the books that they chose were about meditation, mindfulness, inspiring women, things along that nature, which really connected with their community and continued to expand this conversation about mental health and mental health awareness.
Yeah, that kind of message is really important as well, because there's a skincare brand, Dr. Brand, and they actually, in 2015, they actually established a foundation to raise money and develop sort of platforms around mental health issues such as depression and suicide prevention. And that was all created off the back of the fact that one of their founders actually committed suicide in 2015. So it's not about capitalizing on something, but it's about just the fact that you just have that connection. You have that understanding.
You have an authentic story to tell as well.
Yeah, I remember when a couple of years ago, when the Deciem founder committed suicide as well, it then opened up, particularly on beauty Instagram, these conversations around mental health and what people must be going through. And I think these conversations automatically happen. And of course, they're not situations you can force, and they're not situations that by any means you should be capitalizing on. But I think having that connection and being relatable is really important. Okay. We haven't got too much time left, so I'm probably keen to ask you one final funky question. We've all had a tough year. We've all had our own little rituals and things that we've been doing to get us through it. I invested in a very expensive, nice coffee machine for a big birthday, and I've been making latte art all year and sending it out to
Alex and the food and drink team most of the year to show them my pictures of hearts and tulips. I'm trying to do swans. It's failing miserably and just look like upside down bottoms. But we'll get there one day. So that's been very much that ritual of manually making my coffee and then enjoying it and then making another one an hour later to get, sort of get me buzzing in the day. But you each must have a ritual. So tell us about your rituals and then we'll sign off.
One thing that I've done to support my mental wellness, which is frankly a bit boring, but I've noticed that having any sort of clutter in my space and in my house, especially as everybody's working from home and, we've got the dog there, has increased my levels of stress and anxiety. So I've invested in a few pieces to help me organize my space, which has made me feel a whole lot better being home all the time. Nice.
Pantry building. She's awesome.
Mine probably is of an evening just watering plants in the garden. And while I'm doing it, checking the flight scanner app just to see what kind of planes are going over and where, to remind myself that there is another world out there.
That's niche, man. I'm pleased. Which is your favorite plane?
They're all wonderful and I miss them dearly.
Andrew,
I've done sort of the boring things, so things I read more now, and I sort of do a bit of art more. Like I find, particularly, I have a 1-year-old, so I find when sort of 7-8 o'clock comes around, and I can sort of de-stress and charge down, if you like, from that moment. So then I will sort of read or just chat with my wife or do it. I find that's quite nice. I've also found as well that my oral care routine, because I've got this time in the evenings, it's become a lot more important in my life in terms of, it's like right now, not only can I, rinse and then sort of obviously brush your teeth, but it's like right now I have like a really intense flossing routine now, which I didn't have before. Before it was just like a quick floss, blah, blah, blah. But now it's like, it's really intense flossing. I'm not sure it's healthy actually to floss this much, but I have found that has been something that's become quite important to me. But again, it's something that makes me feel good because it's like, I never had the time to do this before. I find that with face masks as well, actually. It's just kind of, you can find the time to use products maybe that, like when we go back out there and I'm back out, seeing people and doing other things, maybe I'll have less time to take this. So, I found that's been really important.
Have you found that as a result of all this flossing and face masking, you've just spent longer in the bathroom of an evening?
I've found that I've built up a resistance to bleeding gums now, which when you first start flossing is horrific and is like a horror movie. So that's fun. I don't know if I have actually found any benefits or any, I don't know. I guess the knock-on effects will be when I get back out in the real world. So when I see you in a couple of weeks, Alex, you can see me and you can tell me then if there's been any benefit to anything I've done.
I think your teeth look lovely, Andrew.
Thank you very much. A ring light helps with that as well. But
I will be scrutinizing your gums.
So I think we've got to finish, which is a shame because we can talk about what brands can do about mental health. For hours. We've talked about functionality of ingredients, about empathy and spending a day in the consumer's shoes, about building communities and getting consumers talking and communicating with them on the platforms that they actually live on. So you're talking their language, which is incredibly important. But firstly, thank you to you guys for joining. And then thank you for listening, everybody. So to listeners out there and to you three, grab a herbal tea and relax. I like a detox one. They're always quite nice. Look after each other. Eat well. That doesn't mean you always have to eat healthily. You can have a bit of indulgence every so often to get you through the day and enjoy it. I had some popping candy earlier, which probably isn't great for me because I generally am a popping candy kind of person. But otherwise, please subscribe, please rate, review us, give us 5 stars. It makes us happy. Catch us for the next episode of Little Conversation over the next few weeks. If you want to know more about Mintel, look us up on mintel.com and follow us on social media. We're talking your language too, so use those platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and so on, and check out more of our insights from our lovely, amazing analysts. Thank you very much for listening.